So, in an extraordinary 7-hour performance on Wednesday, Dominic Cummings launched attacks on Bodger Johnson, his current fiancée, Carrie Simmons, and Matt Hancock over their personal conduct during the crisis. I wonder... maybe I won't go down that road. If I were you, Carrie, I'd take... the absolute first thing I'd do is take him to the vets. Just don't tell him that you're taking him to the vets. Persuade him that he's going for ice cream. Just get him in the car and take him there. I mean, he'll be sore for a little while afterwards, but probably for the best. In an extraordinary 7-hour performance on Wednesday, Dominic Cummings launched attacks on Bodger, his current fiancée, Carrie, and Matt Hancock over their personal conduct during the crisis. And let's deal with those accusations straight away. He said that Bodger shouldn't be in charge of running a bath, let alone a country. He said he was criminally negligent, that he couldn't be bothered with the detail of leading a country in its worst hour since the Second World War, and bombs were raining on the land because his dog, his girlfriend, his ex-wives, his book on Shakespeare, too busy whining about how much he's paid, and just generally didn't care about anything that didn't benefit him personally. And his incompetence and lack of concern and general self-centeredness meant that thousands of actual people, loved by thousands more, died a horrible death. And the answer to all that is, I don't know, pick one. There's the, don't listen to a word that Cummings said, he's just an ex-employee with a grudge. Or, don't listen to a word Cummings said because he once said something that wasn't entirely true, so everything he says must be a lie. Or, the Prime Minister only ever acted in a way to save lives despite all the evidence to the contrary. Or, and this is the answer to Cummings' testimony that most Bodger cult members will go with, leave him alone, he's doing his best. And what did Bodger do the day after Cummings spilled his guts? He went to a hospital to get his photograph taken in a caring environment. Well done, Bodge. There's a picture of you with a nurse. All is forgiven.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I mean, the thing about the astonishing things that Cummings said wasn't that they were astonishing, is that somebody should be so thoroughly lifting the lid on the cesspit of venality that is this regime while it's still in power. That's the amazing part. I mean, this is the sort of thing that people write books about years later. But someone's drawn the curtain back while the great and powerful Oz is actually speaking, to reveal a doughy blob of indecision and ineptitude. And what's happening now is that ministers who still think that the only way is Boris are circling the wagons and saying things like, no one knew what we were dealing with. It was unprecedented. We couldn't have done any better. We were following the science. Look, a dinghy. Plus, vaccines. And, isn't this a cute dog? And have you seen him do his hair thing? Paw! It's going to go like Trump. The Republican Party are now fully engaged in pretending that the assault on the Capitol building on January the 6th didn't actually happen. That's what's going on over there. They're pretending that it didn't happen. That what you saw with your own eyeballs did not exist. Or if it did, the people that were sacking the Capitol building were actually protecting the building from radical leftists. Or it was Black Lives Matter people in white makeup. Or none of the rioters holding Trump banners actually liked Trump. They never even heard of him. It was just a random series of letters they plucked out of a Scrabble bag. It's that Jedi mind trick. These are not the rioters that you're looking for. Except they're not Jedis. They can't do tricks. And that's what we're getting now. Bodger himself had the nerve to say that Keir Starmer was obsessed with looking in the rearview mirror. Why can't we just move on? Well, we should be obsessed with looking in the rearview mirror. As he should. If you've just run over 100,000 people, then you should be looking in the rearview mirror. It's like saying, well, I know I just robbed a bank, Your Honour, but why are you concentrating on the past? Let's look to the future when I'll spend all that money and have a nice time. It's not illegal to have a nice time, is it? Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. New legislation slipped out by Priti Patel. It's now illegal to have a nice time if a Home Secretary finds it annoying. Cummings claimed the Prime Minister was unfit for the job and couldn't lead Britain out of the pandemic. Well, the first is undeniable, isn't it? I mean, can we not at least agree on that? Unfit for the job. I mean, he may be suited to campaigning. He seems to have hoodwinked the large enough part of the electorate to make them think he has their interests at heart. But surely that's all he's good for, electioneering. That he is inherently unsuited to leading anything other than his beloved dog Dylan must be obvious by now, not to anyone who's not under his spell. And I bet the dog does most of the leading when they're on walkabout. I bet he does. Is Boris house-trained yet? Should he be on the sofa?
No.
Cummings said Matt Hancock should have been fired for at least 15 to 20 things, including lying. Yeah, never mind about that. He should have been fired for ham acting when he performed tearing up on camera when the first vaccines were announced. That was embarrassing. Do you want another go at it, Matt? Yeah, that's much more like it. Cummings alleged Hancock had lied to the Prime Minister over the disastrous policy of not testing older people for COVID before they were discharged from hospital into care homes. They called it the stiff broom, didn't they? Just get them out of hospital. Absolutely incredible, really. He alleged that Hancock lied to the PM over the disastrous policy of not testing older people for COVID before they were discharged from hospital into care homes. Well, excuse me, isn't the Prime Minister supposed to be across this sort of stuff? I mean, isn't he supposed to be a detail person, somebody who's running the country? I mean, surely a minister only does what the Prime Minister tells him or her to do. It's not like it comes as a complete surprise. If it does, then what's he doing all day? This being the number one thing that he has to concentrate on, surely. Protecting the people that he is running the country on behalf of. Presumably. If it's Matt Hancock's fault, then it's the Prime Minister's fault as well. Surely, it has to be. Cummings alleged Hancock lied over the disastrous policy of not testing older people for COVID before they were discharged from hospital into care homes. I don't know about anything at all, but that would have been top of my list. But the thing is, it's not news. But his excuse was that he didn't say that he would test hospital patients before he sent them into care homes. He said he would test hospital patients before sending them into care homes. Tense. It's all about tense and emphasis. Tense and emphasis are ministers' get-out-of-jail-free cards. I mean, I'm a great believer in judging a book by its cover. I mean, that's what a cover is literally for, to tell you what a book is like before you read it. And if Matt Hancock was a book, it would be How to Be a Dummy for Dummies. The whole regime could be a confederacy of dunces. I mean, I haven't read that book because it's a book. But I did read Google's summary, and it says, a confederacy of dunces presents the misadventures of Ignatius J. Riley, a modern Don Quixote. Ignatius is a behemoth of fat and flatulence with a gargantuan frame, bushy black moustache, green hunting cap, blue and yellow eyes that look down on the modern era, which is way off. Bodger doesn't have a moustache. Now, all of this stuff that Cummings was going on about, and everything else that has been levelled at the PM. One thing that doesn't come up, in fact, the only person that I know keeps banging on about this is me. Do you remember one of the first things that Bodger did when he acceded to the top job was to cancel the very government committee whose job it was to organise a pandemic? Coincidentally, at the very same time that his best mate in the whole wide world did the exact same thing. The Donito Mussolini.
Don't be rude.
Exactly. The UK government scrapped its anti-pandemic committee when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister. Pretty much the first thing he did. The team, which included Michael Gove, Matt Hancock and Gavin Williamson, well, it might not have been any good. I mean, considering the makeup of the committee. What do you think, Gavin? He's unsure. It was disbanded 6 months before the current COVID-19 crisis hit. The Threats, Hazard, Resilience and Contingency Committee was designed to ensure the UK was prepared for a pandemic, but it was mothballed by Theresa May so the government could focus on Brexit. How's that going, by the way?
Oh, fabulous.
And when Boris Johnson was elected leader, he abolished it completely. A former cabinet minister who was on the team said the committee could have helped the UK react more quickly to the crisis, saying once the pandemic took hold in Italy, alarm bells would have been ringing. He said we would have stress-tested the government's contingency plans for dealing with a pandemic. Well, we ain't got none. Just making it up as they went along in a blind panic. Or just completely disinterested. Occupied with other things, much more important. The ex-Defence Secretary Ben Wallace in 2018 was the security minister behind a report insisting that the committee had a vital role in pandemic planning. This was 2018. His strategy said an influenza pandemic was one of the most significant civil emergency risks facing the UK. It said such an outbreak could have the potential to cause hundreds of thousands of fatalities and cost the UK tens of billions of pounds. Well, it's a good job we didn't have one then, eh? I mean, the entire lot of them should be fired for that alone. But, oh well, never mind. He was doing his best. God, it's vomitous.